Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So some of you may have noticed that I recently disappeared, and I sincerely apologize for that. While there are some things that are going on in real life that have contributed to me not being able to play as much anymore, one of the main reasons that I haven't been playing as much is because of the accidental changes that were made to BA that came with the poison resistance update. So for those of you in the BA community, you probably are well aware of the changes I'm talking about. For those of you that aren't, here's what's happened. On February 8th, following closely behind the Muspa, I don't know, I'm illiterate, update, which introduced freeze resistance into the game, Jagex decided to roll this stat out to every other NPC in the game because it opens up design options for the future, which I fully support because let's face it, there's only so many ways you can add unique combat interactions into this game with how limited the mechanics are. So instead of NPCs just being freezable or not, they've added a scale to it to set how resistant something is to freezes. So while they were at that, they decided to add a poison resistance stat, which determines the chance that an NPC has to be poisoned. And I do like that they made sure to add the line on this post here that, again, current gameplay will remain the same. Well, I hate to say it, but that was a lie. Before I start, I want to say that I'm not encouraging anyone to go be hateful to Jagex. Please don't do that. I think for the most part they do a really good job as devs and are open and receptive to the community in ways that a lot of other game devs aren't. I also want to say that I understand that mistakes happen and this was not done intentionally, and I acknowledge that this game in particular is probably a nightmare to work on because of all the super old pre-2007 code that exists alongside new things that they're trying to integrate into the game. So please keep this in mind as I talk about how this update broke several mechanics and in particular did an absolute number on BA, leading to many very long-time BA players leaving the minigame or the entire game altogether. Okay, so let's start with what happened shortly after this update went live. According to this update on the blog post that came out one day after the update itself went live, players began having issues with the new poison resistance in a few areas of the game. It says the team is currently investigating issues in regards to poison and its use in areas including changing NPC behavior in areas like Barbarian Assault and more. It says one hotfix was deployed and an investigation is ongoing. So that doesn't really tell much of the story. So from what I was able to find on Reddit that was posted that week, that outside of the BA changes, which I'll get to in a second, Chinchampas were spawning in with venom and instantly dying over and over again. The dark core of Corporeal Beast was no longer being stunned by poison, and that's been a thing that's been in the game since Corp came out, and it's been accepted as a viable strategy in dealing with the core. So it's very much an intentional mechanic that was left in the game that was messed up with this update as well. And according to next week's game update that came out on February 15th, poison behavior on Treyas Daith, I think that's the boss from Haunted Mine, and chickens were also messed up, although I couldn't really find anything to say how it was messed up. However, these things were in the fixed column. Notably, nothing in the fixed column about Barbarian Assault, and it wasn't really talked about at all in this post from February 15th. Now let's get into what this update did to BA, so strap in for this one because it's going to be a bit confusing if you haven't played BA much, so feel free to pause and read through the stuff that I'm going to put on here. Credit to Scorchbeast for sending me this information, and I'll try to do my best to not go overboard with it, but basically it boils down to three big changes. So the first one is poison tick timing. The way it used to work was you would wait for a healer to spawn outside of the little cave that it spawns from, and if you were able to poison it before 2.4 seconds passed, or 4 ticks, but I'm going to talk in seconds instead of ticks because I think it's more intuitive for most of the community. So basically you would get a guaranteed poison tick at 3 seconds exactly, and then every 3 seconds afterwards. So this is the passive poison tick that goes on while not spamming it. So I'm going to refer to the passive poison tick quite a bit. It's just the one that's you just see like if you poison something with a dagger and any other part of the game that just kind of ticks down as the monster dies. I'm going to refer to that as the passive poison tick. So after the update, the first passive poison tick will always be 3 seconds after it was poisoned. So in the old example, you could poison it, let's say 1.8 seconds after it spawned, and the next passive poison damage would be 1.2 seconds later at 3 seconds. Now, if you poison it at 1.8 seconds after it spawns. The first passive poison tick will be at 4.8 seconds. So in a way, this first change doesn't really reward having good positioning like before, and being ready at the spawn to get the free poison tick the way it used to work. In my eyes, this is the most minor change, and it would be annoying, but we could play around it if this was the only change. The next two changes are what really hurts in my opinion. Alright, so on to change 2, spamming food. Again, feel free to pause and read this, because it's kind of a lot. So the old way spamming food work is that when you used a piece of food on the healer, it would reset your poison damage back up to 4 if it wasn't already ticking 4s, and then the normal passive poison going on would still occur on that same timeline. So as an example, let's say at second 0, you get the first passive poison damage tick, then at second 3, you would get another passive damage, at second 6, you'd get another, then at 9, 12, 15, etc. every 3 seconds. Even if you use food on the healer again at any point, the passive damage would still occur at those times. So after the change, the passive poison timeline changes every single time you use a new piece of food. So let's say at second 0, I get my first passive poison tick. So ideally, I would get another at 3 seconds, right? Well, if I decide to spam the food to kill this healer faster, and I poison it again at 2 seconds or second 2, the next passive poison tick will no longer be 1 second later at 3 seconds, it'll now be at 5 seconds. So what this essentially boils down to is if you are spamming food into a healer, you're basically never gonna get the passive poison damage that used to be there ticking away in the background while you spammed. In my healing video, I talked about reserve healers and how they spawn, and if you remember, you'll come back with a full inventory of food, and then you'll just spam them as fast as you can to kill them when you come back. Well, as I've highlighted, this is much worse now after this change, and it really affects more than just spamming, but that's the most prevalent example. It's crazy how much the passive poison damage used to do, and something I definitely took for granted, because every time you click it, you're resetting it. So you can spam a healer every 1 tick, 2 if it's moving. So if you're just sitting there spamming, you will never ever get that passive poison damage that you used to get. It just doesn't work anymore. So yeah, that sums up spamming food, and maybe it makes more sense if you read what Scorch sent me. I don't know if I'm doing the best job of explaining this, but yeah, on to the next one. Alright, last change number 3, death timing. I'm just going to let you read this one instead of using examples again because this is already a boring jumbled mess, so I'll just sum this one up by saying it really sucks, things will spawn later that used to spawn earlier, and if changes 1 through 2 didn't exist, then the old codes that the community came up with for optimal healing times wouldn't really work because of this change. Because the reserves would spawn late, because most of the codes are designed around having the healer die at the exact same time that a new healer can spawn, or that a wave can end. Now it dies 1 tick later than it used to, essentially, so just spawns can be 6 seconds later than you were expecting, which I guess, it sucks, and it definitely changes some of the extension strategy you can get, but we're not going to get into all that into this video. Just know that things can sometimes not spawn that would have spawned before, and that's going to cost you 6 extra seconds every time that happens, and in advanced strats it could cost you more because that might overlap with a call change. But yeah, anyways, moving on. Alright, you're saying if you stuck through all of that boring BA mechanic talk, so what do these changes actually boil down to when it's all said and done? About 2 extra minutes per run is about average from what I've seen. That's with mine, personal one, and just from asking around, I'd say it's probably adding about 2 minutes per run to everyone at almost every skill level, besides, brand new. But yeah, 2 minutes per run is probably what I'd say. Beyond that, the entire meta just no longer works, and people who have put hundreds of hours into perfecting the old healing codes, including myself, have now seen them become completely useless overnight. So for me personally, I was planning to upload a healer video if I went try for the pet, kind of showing the full out meta strat for each wave, and I spent probably about a month doing healing only in preparation to make that video, which is just pretty much up in flames now. So trying to learn and perfect those meta strats for healer is what kept many people playing BA, because it meant improvement. Just like in the speedrunning community, it's just like Mario 64 speedruns. People will play the same thing over and over again just to practice and just to try and shave a few seconds off of their fastest time. And I know for me that was definitely a big driving factor in keeping me playing the game, keeping it fun, keeping it fresh. And pretty much in an instant, that's gone for all of us. I mean, it just feels like there's no direction anymore when you play BA. You don't feel like you're practicing and getting better. You don't feel like the time is worthwhile. It just feels like playing as a chore while we wait for a fix. And I mean, these changes have really killed the mood for a lot of BA players who played just for fun and for love of the minigame, because it just feels soulless to me now. It just feels different. But that's enough complaining. Let's talk about the path going forward. To Jagex's credit, they've said that they would fix it, and that's supported by this Mod Ash, God Ash tweet, plus a clip from a live stream that they did. However, they dropped the dreaded engine work, and as of now, there's no timeline that I'm aware of for when that might be, because apparently fixing this requires engine work, and you guys know how that goes. So first, I want to say thanks to them for agreeing to fix it, but I also don't want them to just forget about us, and I need your help with that. BA means a lot to the community that plays it, so I'm asking that those of you who don't play it, please have our back on this one and help us out. And one day, if your favorite part of RuneScape gets obliterated by an update, the BA community will be there for you, and we'll have your back. Just have our back on this one. I'm just one guy with a scuffed YouTube channel, but there are bigger creators out there who have the audience to actually reach Jagex and remind them that this is important to a lot of people who are very passionate about the game that they allow us to play. I'm not asking you to share this video with them, because I don't believe I should be the voice of anything, really. I'm asking you to share your own voice in the live streams that Jagex does, in your favorite creators' chats, in my chat when I actually stream, and on Reddit when these updates are being talked about. Just give them a quick and respectful reminder that we haven't forgotten, and we're patiently waiting to see the minigame that we love return. And you can do that by dropping a quick and respectful, again, be respectful, Mabaga. Make Barbarian Assault great again. As always, I appreciate you watching. Let's go make BA great again.